Episode 1. The Boy Who Danced with a Shadow. June 25th, 2009. The world stops in its tracks at news that shakes the foundations of popular music. Michael Jackson, the king of pop, has died. But to understand the end of this story, we must go back to the beginning, to a small house in Gary, Indiana, where a 5-year-old boy was practicing dance moves in front of a broken mirror, unaware that he was destined to change the world forever. In the industrial heart of Gary, Indiana, the thick air is filled with the constant roar of the steel mills. It's 1958, and in a modest 2-room house on Jackson Street, the 8th of 9 children is born, one who will carry the family name into eternity. Michael Joseph Jackson enters the world on August 29th, while the sirens of the steel mills set the rhythm for a city that thrives on hard work and broken dreams. Joseph Walter Jackson, a man with callous hands and ironclad ambitions, works as a crane operator by day, but at night his guitar comes alive. In the basement of his home, among rusty tools and stacked boxes, Joe Jackson nurtures a dream that life never allowed him to achieve. His wife, Catherine, a devout woman of unwavering faith, watches as her husband's eyes sparkle whenever he talks about music. But there's something more in that gaze, a determination that borders on obsession. 1963. Michael is barely 5 years old when something extraordinary happens. While his older brothers Jackie, Tito, and Jermaine rehearse in the basement, little Michael stands motionless on the stairs, watching every move, memorizing every note. Without anyone noticing, his little feet begin to move to the music, creating an instinctive choreography that seems to come from another world. One Saturday afternoon, Joe Jackson goes down to the basement and finds something that will change his family's destiny forever. Michael, with his angelic crystalline voice, is singing Climb Every Mountain, while executing dance moves that no child his age should be able to perform. His older siblings have stopped playing and stare open-mouthed at this little creature, who seems to have been born with rhythm running through his veins. Joseph Jackson immediately recognizes the potential he has in his hands. It's not just talent. It's something deeper, something that could lift his family out of poverty in Gary. In the following weeks, the basement becomes a makeshift rehearsal studio. Michael, barely 6 years old, is named lead singer of the group that would become known as the Jackson 5. But training is no child's play. Rehearsals stretch on for hours. While other children play in the park, Michael repeats the same songs and steps over and over again until perfection becomes second nature. Joe Jackson doesn't accept mistakes, and his teaching method is relentless. Catherine watches from the kitchen, torn between pride at seeing her son's talent and concern for the childhood fading before her eyes. 1965. The Jackson 5 began performing in local talent shows at clubs and theaters in Chicago and Indiana. Michael, now 7 years old, commands a stage with a presence that defies all logic. His voice isn't just beautiful, it's magnetic. Each performance ends with the audience on its feet, applauding this boy who sings and dances as if he's lived 100 lives. One August night in 1968, the phone rings at the Jackson home. On the other end of the line, a voice that would change their lives forever. It's someone from Motown Records in Detroit. Berry Gordy Jr., the founder of the most important record label for black music in the United States, wants to meet the Jackson 5. Diana Ross, star of the Supremes, had personally recommended them after seeing them audition in Chicago. The night before leaving for Detroit, the Jackson family gathers in the basement for the last time as ordinary residents of Gary, Indiana. Michael, now 10, stares at the peeling walls and low ceiling that have been his universe for so long. Something tells him that when he returns, if he ever returns, nothing will be the same. Catherine hugs her son, whispering protective words in his ear that the winds of fate will soon blow away. As the Jackson family packs their meager belongings for the trip to Motown, Michael lingers a moment longer in front of the broken basement mirror. In the fragmented reflection, he no longer sees Gary the kid. He sees something bigger, something he doesn't yet fully understand. What he doesn't know is that in Detroit, not only fame awaits him, but also a contract that will make him the property of an industry that devours children and spits out legends. The question hanging in the air is simple but terrifying. Can a 10-year-old boy survive becoming the center of the world? Episode 2, The Star-Making Machine. Detroit, 1968. The Jackson family's Cadillac pulls up in front of an unassuming building on West Grand Boulevard bearing a sign that would change music history. Hitsville, USA, the headquarters of Motown Records. Michael, just 10 years old, stares out the window at this seemingly ordinary place, unaware that he's about to enter America's most powerful star-making machine. Berry Gordy Jr. awaits him inside, a man whose vision would transform the black sound into universal music. Berry Gordy Jr. isn't just a producer, he's a visionary. In 1959, with an $800 loan from his family, he created Motown with a revolutionary philosophy: to make black music so perfect and polished that even the most conservative white audiences couldn't resist it. When he meets the Jackson 5, especially Michael, his eyes sparkle with the recognition of someone who has struck pure gold in its natural state. In Studio A at Hitsville, the Jackson 5 are preparing for the most important audition of their lives. Michael, dressed in his best shirt and pants that are a bit too big for him, takes the microphone with trembling hands. But when he begins to sing, "I Want You Back," something magical happens. His voice fills every corner of the studio, and his movements mesmerize everyone present. Berry Gordy smiles. He's found his new secret weapon. Motown isn't just a record label. It's an entertainment university. The Jackson 5 are immediately enrolled in the company's artist development program, where legends like Diana Ross, Smokey Robinson, and Martha Reeves take them under their wing. Michael absorbs each lesson like a sponge. He learns how to walk, how to speak in public, how to move his hands gracefully, how to connect with the audience. But the price of this education is his childhood. October 1969, "I Want You Back" is released as the Jackson 5's debut single. In just 6 weeks, the song reaches #1 on the Billboard charts, becoming a phenomenon that transcends all racial and generational barriers. Michael, barely 11 years old, becomes a voice that defines a new era. Success isn't gradual. It's an explosion that shakes the foundations of the music industry. The Jackson 5 go on tour across the United States. In every city, thousands of teenage fans await them, screaming, crying, fainting. Michael discovers the almost supernatural power he has over the crowds. But he also experiences for the first time the isolation of fame. He can't leave the hotel, he can't make friends, he can't just be a kid. His world is reduced to stages, recording studios and hotel rooms. Ed Sullivan, the same man who introduced Elvis and the Beatles to the American public, invites the Jackson 5 to his show. Their performance on December 14, 1969, is historic. 70 million people watch on television this child prodigy who sings and dances with mastery that defies his age. After that night, Michael Jackson is no longer just a singer, he's a cultural phenomenon. 1970. In less than 2 years, the Jackson 5 have placed 4 consecutive #1 songs: "I Want You Back," ABC, "The Love You Save," and "I'll Be There." It's a record no group, black or white, had ever achieved before. Michael becomes the most famous child on the planet. But behind the media smile, something is quietly breaking. As the Jackson 5 dominate the charts, family tensions begin to surface. Joe Jackson, obsessed with maintaining total control over his children's careers, constantly clashes with Berry Gordy's decisions. Michael finds himself caught in the middle, used as a bargaining chip in disputes a child shouldn't understand. The pressure is so intense that he begins to develop the first signs of obsessive perfectionism that will stay with him throughout his life. In his hotel room on tour, 12-year-old Michael looks in the mirror and no longer recognizes the boy he once was in Gary. He's gained the world, but he's lost something he can never get back: his innocence. His siblings can play, joke around, and be normal teenagers. He can't. The financial burden of his entire family rests on his young shoulders, and that responsibility begins to transform him in ways he doesn't yet fully understand. As the Jackson 5 prepare their next album, Berry Gordy makes a decision that will shake the foundations of the Jackson family. Michael will record his first solo album. The boy who had arrived in Detroit as part of a group is about to take the first step toward becoming the most important individual artist of the 20th century. But what no one knew was that this first solo step would also be the beginning of an isolation that would haunt him until the end of his days. The question that echoed in the halls of Hitsville was a disturbing one. What happens to a child when the entire world expects him to be perfect? Episode 3, The Trapped Teenager, 1972. Michael Jackson, now 14, is at the height of childhood success, but something strange is happening. His voice begins to change. At Motown Studios, producers watch in concern as the angelic voice that conquered the world becomes deeper, more unpredictable. Michael lives terrified that each recording session will be his last, that the magic that made him a star will disappear along with his childhood voice. Gotta Be There marks Michael Jackson's solo debut. While his brothers continue with the Jackson 5, he ventures into uncharted territory, being Michael Jackson, not just the lead singer of the family group. The song reaches number 4 on the charts, confirming that his talent transcends group identity. But this success brings with it even greater pressure, proving he can stay at the top on his own. In the privacy of his new room in the family mansion in Encino, California, Michael spends hours staring at himself in the mirror. His face is changing, his body is lengthening, and with each physical transformation, he feels he's losing a piece of the identity the world holds dear. He begins to develop a complex relationship with his own image, an obsession that will stay with him throughout his life. He constantly wonders, will he still be special when he's no longer a child? As Michael explores his solo career, the family dynamic becomes more complex. Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, and Marlon watch as their younger brother receives all the media attention and the best opportunities. Jealousy, though never openly expressed, begins to create fissures in a once unbreakable unity. Michael feels guilty about his individual success, but at the same time, he cannot resist the call of his artistic destiny. 1978. Michael is chosen to play the Scarecrow in The Wiz, an African-American version of The Wizard of Oz. For the first time in his life, he works outside the direct control of Berry Gordy and his family. On the film set, he meets Diana Ross in an adult professional context and discovers a new dimension of his creativity. But it is his encounter with Quincy Jones, the film's music producer, that will truly change his destiny. Tensions between Joe Jackson and Berry Gordy reach a breaking point. The Jackson 5 want more creative and financial control over their music, but Motown refuses to budge. The ensuing legal battle is fierce and painful. Michael, now 19, finds himself torn between loyalty to the company that created him and a desire to evolve artistically. The decision they make will mark the end of an era and the birth of something entirely new. 1976. The Jackson brothers sign with Epic Records, but the price of freedom is high. They must change their name to the Jacksons and leave behind Jermaine, who stays at Motown out of loyalty to Berry Gordy. Michael feels he's betraying the family that raised him, but he also understands it's the only path to artistic maturity. The child prodigy is dying to give birth to the artist. In the midst of his transition to Epic Records, Michael experiences a profound identity crisis. He spent his entire adolescence being what others expected him to be, but now at 18, he wonders who Michael Jackson really is when he's not on stage. He begins to explore different facets of his personality: spirituality, art, nature. But each internal search seemed to pull him further away from real human connection. During the recordings of the album Destiny with the Jacksons, Michael first displayed the obsession with perfection that would define him in later decades. He could spend hours repeating the same vocal line until it sounded exactly as he heard it in his mind. His siblings began to notice that Michael was no longer the playful child they once knew. He was becoming something more intense, more complex, more unattainable. At a music industry party in Los Angeles, Michael reconnects with Quincy Jones. Their conversation that night will be the catalyst for the most important transformation of his career. Quincy sees in Michael not just a former Jackson 5 prodigy, but a complete artist who can conquer not only the soul charts, but the entire world. He proposes they work together on a project that would challenge all known musical boundaries. As Michael signs a contract to work with Quincy Jones on his new solo album, he can't imagine that he's about to create not only the best-selling album in history, but that he will become the most famous man on the planet. But the fame that comes will be unlike anything he's experienced before. It won't just be success. It will be a transformation that will transform him into something greater than a human being. He will become a living myth. The question that keeps him up at night is simple but terrifying. Is he ready to stop being Michael Jackson, the brother, the son, the human being, and become Michael Jackson, the icon? Episode 4, The Birth of a King. Los Angeles, 1979. At Westlake Studios, Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones embark on the creation of Off the Wall, the album that will transform the former Jackson 5 member into a respected adult artist. Quincy notes how Michael, now 21, has developed a musical vision that transcends genres. He doesn't want to be pigeonholed as a soul music artist. He wants to create a sound that speaks to all races, all generations, all the hearts of the world. Don't Stop Till You Get Enough emerges from the sessions as a declaration of artistic independence. Michael doesn't just sing the song, he lives it. His falsetto has evolved into something more complex and sensual, while his vocal arrangements display a sophistication that surprises even veteran musicians. When the song was released in July 1979, it reached number 1 on the R&B charts and established Michael as an independent creative force. During the recordings, Quincy Jones witnesses Michael's consuming perfectionist obsession. They can spend days working on a single groove, a single breath, a single vocal movement that only Michael can hear in his mind. His fellow musicians learn that working with Michael means redefining what excellence means. It's not cruelty, it's an almost spiritual pursuit of sonic perfection. Off the Wall becomes a global phenomenon. The album produces 4 top 10 singles, unprecedented for a black artist at the time. Michael has achieved the impossible, creating music that is indisputably black in its roots, yet universally accessible in its appeal. White radio stations that previously ignored his music are now competing to play his songs first. Despite the massive success of Off the Wall, Michael experiences a profound disappointment. The album fails to win the Grammy for Best Album of the Year, losing to Christopher Cross. This defeat fuels an ambition that borders on obsession. Michael promises himself that his next album will be so indisputably superior that no one will be able to ignore it. Little does he know, he's just planted the seed for Thriller. The success of Off the Wall brings with it increasing isolation. Michael moves to a mansion in Encino, where he lives surrounded by exotic animals and memories of his lost childhood. His only constant companions are his chimpanzee, Bubbles, and a personal zoo that grows every month. The outside world becomes increasingly dangerous for someone whose face is instantly recognizable anywhere on the planet. 1981. Michael begins working on his next album with a self-imposed pressure that borders on the superhuman. Every song must be a potential hit. Every arrangement must be revolutionary. Every detail must be perfect. Quincy Jones watches with concern as his collaborator becomes consumed by the pursuit of excellence that may be unattainable. But Michael has a clear vision: to create the greatest album in history. During a sleepless night, Michael creates the bass riff that will become Billie Jean. The song is born from his frustration with paternity accusations that haunt him, but transforms into something more universal: a meditation on fame, paranoia, and the price of success. When he plays a demo for Quincy, they both know they've captured something special, something that will define not only the album, but an entire musical era. Michael understands that music is no longer enough. Music television is changing the industry, and he wants to be at the forefront of that revolution. He begins conceptualizing music videos that aren't just promos, but cinematic works of art. His vision is ambitious. He wants every video to tell a story, every frame to be memorable, every second to be perfect. He doesn't know he's about to revolutionize popular culture forever. In the privacy of his home dance studio, Michael perfects a move he's been developing for months: the moonwalk. It's a perfect optical illusion that defies the apparent laws of physics. He practices for hours until the movement becomes so fluid he appears to float above the stage. This dance move, which he will present to the world in a few months, will become his most iconic visual signature. As Michael puts the finishing touches on Thriller, he can't imagine that he's about to create not just an album, but a cultural phenomenon that will redefine what it means to be famous in the 20th century. The record he's finishing will not only make him the most successful artist in the world, but will transform him into something that transcends music, a global icon whose influence will extend far beyond entertainment. But with that transformation will come an even greater isolation from the real world. The question hanging in the air at Westlake Studios is prophetic. Can a human being survive becoming the absolute center of the world's cultural universe? Episode 5. The King Conquers the World. November 30th, 1982. Thriller hits record stores without much initial fanfare. But in the following weeks, something extraordinary begins to happen. Sales don't follow the typical up and down pattern. They keep rising week after week, month after month. Michael Jackson has created something that transcends traditional musical categories. It's not just a pop, R&B, rock, or funk album. It's a new category in itself. MTV, the music video channel that had systematically excluded black artists, is forced to reconsider its policies when Billie Jean becomes an unstoppable phenomenon. CBS Records' threat to pull its entire catalog from the channel works. MTV begins showing Michael Jackson videos. What they didn't expect was that these videos weren't just music, but small cinematic masterpieces that would redefine the medium forever. May 25th, 1983. In the television special Motown 25, Yesterday, Today, Forever, Michael Jackson publicly performs the moonwalk for the first time. 50 million viewers literally gasp as they watch the 24-year-old defy gravity with supernatural grace. That moment, lasting just 5 seconds, becomes one of the most iconic in television history. The Thriller short film directed by John Landis isn't just a music video. It's a cultural event. With a budget of $500,000, it includes zombie choreography, special effects makeup, and a complete cinematic narrative. When it premiered in December 1983, television stations scheduled it as a special event. Michael transformed the music video from a promotional tool into an art form. 1984. Thriller not only dominates the charts, it redefines them. 7 of the album's 9 songs become top 10 hits, something completely unprecedented. Sales reach seemingly impossible levels, 1 million copies per week for some periods. Michael Jackson is no longer just a successful singer. He has become an economic phenomenon moving hundreds of millions of dollars. January 27th, 1984. While filming a Pepsi commercial, a pyrotechnic error causes Michael's hair to catch fire. Second-degree burns on his scalp require multiple reconstructive surgeries. This accident marks the beginning of a complex relationship with cosmetic surgery and painkillers that will follow him for decades. The physical pain becomes a prelude to an addiction few know about. The Victory Tour, with his brothers in 1984, became a sociological phenomenon. In each city, tens of thousands of fans camped out for days to get tickets. The concerts weren't just musical spectacles. They were almost religious experiences where the audience cried, screamed, and fainted en masse. Michael transcended entertainment to become something deeper, a spiritual icon for millions of people. With absolute fame comes an isolation that borders on the inhuman. Michael can no longer walk down the street, go to the supermarket, or have a casual conversation without being recognized. His world shrinks to mansions with high walls, cars with tinted windows, and a retinue of employees who protect him from the outside world. The loneliness of success becomes so intense that it begins to profoundly affect his perception of reality. February 1984. At the Grammy Awards, Michael Jackson wins 8 statuettes in a single night, setting a record that still stands decades later. When he takes the stage to accept the award for Album of the Year, he's no longer just Michael Jackson. He's officially the king of pop, but behind the smile and the thanks, something in his eyes reveals the crushing weight of having reached the absolute pinnacle of global success. In the solitude of his Encino mansion, surrounded by his 8 Grammys, Michael Jackson stares in the mirror and wonders who he really is when he's not being the king of pop. He's conquered the world, but he's lost something fundamental in the process: the ability to genuinely connect with other human beings. Every interaction is mediated by his fame. Every relationship is tainted by his status. The boy who once danced freely in Gary, Indiana, has become a prisoner of his own success. As Thriller continues to break sales records around the world, Michael Jackson faces a cruel paradox. He is the most admired man on the planet, but also one of the loneliest. He has reached the summit of success, but from that height, the fall can be devastating. What he doesn't know is that the following years will bring not only more artistic triumphs, but also the first signs of a downward spiral that will lead him down increasingly darker paths. The question that echoed in his mind was a disturbing one. What does a king do when he has already conquered all there is to conquer? Episode 6, The Lone Warrior, 1985. Michael Jackson faces a challenge few artists have experienced. How to top Thriller? The best-selling album in history has set such a high bar that anything he does afterward will inevitably be compared to that perfection. In his home studio, surrounded by synthesizers and drum machines, Michael obsessively works on new material, knowing the world awaits another miracle. The multiple surgeries following the Pepsi crash have begun to subtly change Michael's appearance. What began as medical reconstruction has become a constant pursuit of aesthetic perfection. Each procedure promises to be the last, but dissatisfaction with his image drives him to seek further changes. Those close to him are beginning to notice that the face they knew is transforming into something different, more delicate, less recognizable as the Michael of before. At Westlake Studios, Michael and Quincy Jones embark on the creation of Bad, an album that is meant to prove that Thriller was no fluke. The title track emerges as a declaration of musical war. Michael is no longer the shy young man who sang about love and fun. He's an artistic warrior who challenges anyone to question him. The transformation in his voice is evident. More aggressive, harder, more urban. The short film Bad, directed by Martin Scorsese, presents a tougher, more sexualized Michael Jackson than ever before. Dressed in black leather with metal buckles, he performs choreographies that combine stylized violence with pure sensuality. Some television stations censor the video for its excessively provocative content. Michael has evolved from a family icon to a symbol of adult rebellion. The Bad Tour World Tour from 1987 to 1989 became the largest entertainment event in history up to that point. With 123 concerts in 15 countries, it attracted over 4 million spectators. Each show was a theatrical production featuring pyrotechnics, illusions, and military choreography. Michael didn't just sing his songs. He turned them into total sensory experiences. The success of Bad confirms that Michael can repeat miracles, but the price is increasing isolation. His inner circle dwindles to employees, bodyguards, and assistants. Genuine friendships become impossible because everyone he gets close to has questionable motivations. Michael develops a growing paranoia about the outside world, feeling that everyone wants something from him and no one really knows him. In a business move that shocks the music industry, Michael Jackson outbids Paul McCartney in the auction for the publishing rights to the Beatles songs. The purchase for $47.5 million is not only a brilliant deal, but a statement of power. Michael has gone from being an artist controlled by others to the owner of the most valuable music in the world. But this victory forever shatters his friendship with McCartney. As Michael becomes more eccentric, the media begins to construct a narrative of weirdness that will haunt him for decades. His exotic pets, his hyperbaric oxygen chamber, his attempts to purchase the Elephant Man's bones. Every story, real or invented, fuels the image of a man who has lost touch with reality. Michael becomes both an object of media adoration and ridicule. Amidst the chaos of fame, Michael embarks on a spiritual quest that leads him down various religious and philosophical paths. He studies Islam, explores Buddhism, delves deeper into his Christianity, and reads about Eastern philosophies. This quest isn't superficial. It's a man's desperate attempt to find meaning beyond material success. But every answer he finds seems to generate more questions. Michael Jackson buys a 1,700-acre ranch in Santa Barbara County and transforms it into Neverland, a personal theme park that includes a zoo, a fire station, and thrill rides. It's not just a house. It's the physical embodiment of his desire to recapture his lost childhood. In Neverland, Michael can be Peter Pan, the boy who never grew up, surrounded by magic and fantasy. But it's also his gilded prison, the place where he increasingly isolates himself from the real world. As Michael Jackson consolidates his reign at Neverland, he cannot imagine that this personal paradise will become both his refuge and his downfall. The following years will bring not only more musical successes, but also the first serious accusations that threaten to destroy everything he has built. The boy who once conquered the world with his innocence is about to face battles that will test not only his career, but his very soul. The question hanging over the perfect gardens of Neverland was ominous. Can a man find peace when the entire world is watching, judging, and waiting for his downfall? Episode 7, The King's Judgment. August 1993. A phone call to the Los Angeles police unleashes a storm that will change Michael Jackson's life forever. Evan Chandler, a Beverly Hills dentist, accuses the king of pop of sexually abusing his 13-year-old son, Jordan Chandler. The news spreads like wildfire, and within hours, the most famous man in the world becomes the most wanted defendant on the planet. News helicopters circle Neverland like vultures waiting for carrion. Michael, who always meticulously controlled his public image, finds himself completely exposed to a world thirsty for scandal. Every detail of his private life becomes circumstantial evidence. His love for children, once seen as angelic charity, is now reinterpreted as something sinister by a press that has found the story of the century. The pressure of the accusations drives Michael to increasingly turn to the painkillers he began using after the Pepsi accident. What began as a medical treatment has become a dependency that helps him escape an unbearable reality. His employees watch with concern as the man who was once a model of physical and mental perfection slowly disintegrates before their eyes. The Santa Barbara Sheriff's Department's search of Neverland is a live-televised public humiliation. 70 officers invade Michael's private sanctuary, searching for evidence of crimes that may never have occurred. Every room, every corner of his personal refuge is violated by strangers seeking to confirm the world's most terrible suspicions about him. During a live performance from Mexico, Michael collapses on stage. Officially, it's dehydration and exhaustion, but those who know him know it's deeper. The weight of being judged by a billion people is breaking a man who had dedicated his entire life to bringing joy to the world. He is evacuated, and the remainder of his world tour is canceled. In January 1994, Michael Jackson reached an out-of-court settlement with the Chandlers for a sum estimated at between $15 and $25 million. His decision not to go to trial was interpreted both as an admission of guilt by his detractors and as a survival strategy by his defenders. Michael himself justified the decision. He preferred to pay rather than expose his private life to a prejudged media trial. In May 1994, the world received news that no one saw coming. Michael Jackson had secretly married Lisa Marie Presley, Elvis's daughter. The marriage seemed like a strategic alliance to rehabilitate his image, but it was also a desperate attempt by a lonely man to find understanding in someone who had lived under the curse of fame from birth. Michael attempted to rebuild his career with the album History, Past, Present, and Future, Book I, which combines his greatest hits with new material that reflects his pain and self-defense. Songs like Scream and They Don't Care About Us are angry cries against a world that has betrayed him. But music, always his refuge, can no longer fully protect him from the constant public judgment. His marriage to Lisa Marie lasts barely 20 months. Their divorce in January 1996 marks the end of his last attempt at a normal emotional life. Michael finds himself lonelier than ever, surrounded by loyal employees but deprived of the genuine intimacy he so yearns for. His isolation deepens, and Neverland becomes more of a prison than a paradise. In November 1996, Michael married Debbie Rowe, a dermatological nurse who worked for his doctor. The marriage, which resulted in the birth of Prince Michael Jackson Jr. in February 1997 and Paris Michael Catherine Jackson in April 1998, seems more like a contractual agreement than a romantic union. Michael finally has the children he always dreamed of, but at an emotional price few understand. As Michael Jackson tries to rebuild his life as a father and artist, the shadows of the accusations never fully leave him. He has survived the most intense scrutiny any celebrity has ever faced, but the scars are deep and permanent. What he doesn't know is that in a few years, he will face an even more public and devastating trial that will test not only his reputation, but his will to continue living. The question hanging over his new family life was a painful one. Can a man find redemption when the world refuses to forgive? Episode 8, The Last Dance. 2005. Michael Jackson sits in the Santa Maria, California, courtroom facing 10 charges related to child sexual abuse. The king of pop, now 46, looks frail and gaunt, a shadow of the icon who once conquered the world. His finances are in ruins. Neverland is mortgaged, and his reputation hangs in the balance. The impending trial isn't just about justice. It's about the survival of the legend. For 4 months, The world watches every detail of the most high-profile trial of modern times. Michael faces the Arvizo family's accusations with a dignity that contrasts with his obvious physical and emotional suffering. Every day in court is a public agony, but also a final opportunity to clear his name. His fans camp outside the courthouse, praying for his acquittal as if it were a religious cause. June 13, 2005. The verdict comes as a ray of hope, not guilty on all charges. Michael Jackson walks out of court a free man, but not a victor. The legal acquittal cannot erase years of public speculation, and his image has been irreparably tarnished. He has won the legal battle, but he has lost the battle for his reputation. Michael leaves the United States immediately after the trial, seeking refuge in Bahrain, where Prince Abdullah bin Hamad Al Khalifa offers him protection and friendship. In the gilded exile of the Persian Gulf, Michael tries to heal the wounds of the most devastating decade of his life. But geographical distance cannot heal the deep psychological damage he has suffered. 2006, Michael Jackson's debts have reached $400 million. The man once synonymous with commercial success is facing bankruptcy. Neverland is in foreclosure, and his lawyers are desperately fighting to keep a crumbling financial empire afloat. The irony is cruel. The most successful entertainer in history can't pay his bills. Between 2005 and 2008, Michael Jackson became a ghost of himself. He lived as a nomad between Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Virginia, and Ireland, never settling permanently anywhere. His children, Prince, Paris, and Blanket, born in 2002 via surrogate mother, became his only source of genuine joy in a world that had become increasingly hostile. March 2009. AEG Live offers Michael Jackson a ransom contract. 50 concert at London's O2 Arena titled This Is It. The deal promises $100 million and a chance to rebuild both his fortune and his legacy. Michael accepts, knowing it's his last chance to prove to the world he's still the king of pop. In the Los Angeles rehearsal studios, Michael Jackson is working frantically on what will be his triumphant return. Despite his deteriorating physical condition and dependence on medication, his artistic genius remains intact. Rehearsals reveal that even at 50, Michael Jackson is still capable of creating pure magic. This Is It promises to be more than a concert. It will be a spiritual experience. June 2009. Michael is in the final stages of preparing for his comeback, but his body, battered by decades of perfectionism, accidents, and chemical dependency, is at its limit. His personal physician, Conrad Murray, administers propofol, a surgical anesthetic, to help him sleep. It's a dangerous practice that Michael has normalized in his desperate search for rest. June 25, 2009, 2:18 p.m. In his rented Holmby Hills mansion, Michael Jackson stops breathing. Resuscitation attempts fail, and at 2:14 p.m. he is pronounced dead at UCLA Medical Center. The king of pop has passed away, taking with him the secrets of an extraordinary and tragic life. The world mourns the loss of the greatest artist of his era. Michael Jackson's memorial at the Staples Center in Los Angeles brings together more than 17,000 people, while 1 billion more watch on television. In his death, Michael regains a love he had lost in life. His albums once again dominate the charts. His videos reach billions of views, and a new generation discovers his genius. The question is no longer whether he was guilty or innocent, but how a human being could create such beauty while suffering so much pain. In the years following his death, Michael Jackson transcended humanity to become pure legend. His musical innovations continue to influence artists decades later. His videos are still studied as cinematic masterpieces, and his cultural impact remains unchanged. The boy from Gary, Indiana, who once danced with his shadow, finally found the peace he sought his entire life: immortality through art. Michael Joseph Jackson was born a child prodigy and died a living myth. His story is a perfect embodiment of the American dream and its deepest nightmare: the price of absolute fame, the cost of perfection, and the loneliness that comes with being the center of the world. His music will continue to resonate long after the controversies are forgotten, because ultimately, Michael Jackson wasn't just a man who sang and danced. He was a personification of human magic transformed into eternal art. His final question was answered in his legacy. Yes, one could be immortal, but only after paying the highest price there is: life itself.